In recent weeks, Vladimir Putin has continued to present himself as the undisputed ruler of the Russian Federation, a strong man whose grip on power is absolute. But behind the carefully crafted image of strength and control, cracks are beginning to show. Inside Russia, discontent is growing. And now, among pro-Russian war correspondents, a dangerous rumor has begun to circulate. Whispers of a possible military coup. Today, we'll take a closer look at just how realistic such a coup might be, and what could truly be behind these explosive claims. In recent days, unrest has been spreading among some of Russia's most loyal pro-war bloggers. They're claiming that senior officers inside the general staff are growing increasingly frustrated with Putin's approach to the war in Ukraine. The allegation? That some of these officers might be considering removing him from power because they no longer want to see their units sacrificed pointlessly at the front. When we examine Russia's so-called summer offensive more closely, this dissatisfaction begins to make sense. Since the launch of this major offensive, Moscow has achieved no meaningful breakthroughs. Strategic cities like Pokrovsk and Kostyantynivka remain firmly in Ukrainian hands, and their capture now appears highly unlikely given the current situation. Russian forces do manage to inch forward in the Donbass from time to time, but these advances are usually measured in a few hundred meters, while casualties soar to staggering levels. In fact, despite this massive summer push, Russia has gained just 0.094% more Ukrainian territory. Not 1%, not even 0.1%, but less than 0.1%. The price for this microscopic gain has been tens of thousands of lives and a severe weakening of Russia's military strength. And yet, if you follow many Western media reports, you might get the impression that Russia is sweeping from victory to victory. The reality, however, is starkly different. At the height of its occupation, Russia controlled roughly 20% of Ukrainian territory. Today, that figure is about 18.9%. That means Moscow holds around 10,800 square kilometers, or about 4,000 square miles, less than it once did. Meanwhile, the Russian military has suffered roughly 1 million personnel losses. For months now, these losses can no longer be fully replaced, neither in weapon systems nor in manpower. The combat effectiveness of the Russian army continues to decline, with no compensating successes in sight. Given all this, it's hardly surprising that some officers are growing deeply frustrated. They see entire generations being sent to their deaths, with no realistic chance of victory over Ukraine. Could some of them be so dissatisfied that they're actually contemplating a coup? While it can't be confirmed, history shows us that such a thing is not entirely unthinkable. We don't have to look far for precedent. In June 2023, Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagner group staged an armed uprising against the Kremlin. What stood out back then was how half-heartedly the Russian army tried to stop him. In Rostov-on-Don, no one arrested him. No airstrikes were launched against his forces. Instead, generals were seen casually drinking coffee with him on the street. Police, Chechen forces, customs officers, none of them moved to block his advance. In fact, civilians greeted Wagner fighters, offering them food and wine. The entire Russian leadership remained silent, and Putin disappeared from public view. Even then, many within the army seemed open to the idea of Putin being removed. And at that time, the Russian military situation was far better than it is today. Adding to this instability is Putin's habit of sidelining or arresting capable generals who dare to criticize the military's conduct. Take the case of General Ivan Popov. He successfully defended Russia's lines in southern Ukraine and was considered one of the country's most competent commanders. But after speaking out against the military leadership, he was swiftly removed. Recently, a military court sentenced Popov to 5 years in a penal colony on charges of large-scale theft of frontline equipment. His rank was stripped, and he denies all allegations, with his lawyer filing an appeal. Many believe the charges were politically motivated, punishment for his criticism of the war. For Russia's officers, the message is clear. As long as Putin remains in power, they will be forced to send their troops to certain death, with no ability to change course. To end this destructive war, some may feel that removing Putin is the only solution. And it's not just military figures who are turning away from him. High-ranking politicians have also begun to distance themselves. Dmitry Kozak, once a close ally of Putin, privately admitted that the invasion was a mistake and even tried to push for peace talks. His influence has now been stripped away and handed to a more loyal Putin supporter. All of this paints a clear picture. Putin's rule is far from unchallenged. The Kremlin strongman is under significant pressure from within. But does this mean we should expect a coup in the near future? Not necessarily. These rumors might not be what they seem. It's entirely possible that they are part of a covert operation by the FSB, deliberately planted to frame certain high-ranking officers and create a pretext for removing them. In true Stalinist fashion, Putin could use such accusations to purge the military of anyone he considers disloyal. And in fact, recent legal changes in Russia fit perfectly with this theory. For the first time since the Stalin era, the FSB has been given back control over its own network of detention facilities. These prisons can now hold anyone suspected of treason, espionage, terrorism, or extremism, completely under FSB authority. With this new power, removing troublesome officers would be simple. Accuse them of plotting a coup, lock them away in an FSB prison, and the problem disappears. Whether we're looking at a genuine coup plot or a preemptive purge by an increasingly paranoid leader, one thing is certain. Both scenarios reveal Putin's growing weakness. Either he truly faces the risk of being overthrown, or he has become so unsure of his own power that he feels the need to crush any possible opposition before it can even form. And history shows us that dictators often take such drastic measures when they sense their time is running out. The only question now is this: are we witnessing the first signs of a real military revolt in Russia, or just another ruthless FSB operation to tighten Putin's grip on power? Only time will tell.